assist?
Yeah, I have no idea. Sorry, I'll look into it for the next one for sure.
No worries. All right. Well, we've got a good audience. Good morning, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties to start. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to be talking futsal today. We're really from Norcal side. We're very excited to have these three gentlemen coming and sharing some of their experience and wisdom with us. We are going to be running a series of these webinars on Wednesdays. So there's two more in the coming 2 weeks that we hope you'll join us for. One next week on adding adult women's programming, and then one the following week from Santa Rivas at US Soccer about the DOC course from US Soccer. So where I'd like to start is if we could, each one of our panelists, if you could just kind of explain for our audience what you do in the world of futsal, kind of what your role is, and then we'll go back around and talk a little bit about the background of your programs. Rob, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sounds good. So thanks a lot, Nick, for having us. Great to be here, kind of spreading the futsal gospel. So anyways, yeah, Rob Bell, I'm the futsal director at Ballistic United in Pleasanton in the East Bay. Started with Ballistic in 2013. Basically grew the program from about 12 kids that were at U7, U8 to currently, 8 years later to about 400 kiddos that participate on a regular basis. We had basically three programs at Ballistic. One is a recreational program, another is aimed at competitive, and another is an elite program, kind of a version of MLS Next, but on the futsal side, called Champions Cup Series through United Futsal. Before Ballistic, I had started a futsal club in 2010 at a local middle school where I was a teacher. And that was really aimed at a disadvantaged community. Was hoping for maybe a dozen kids to join in. Suddenly at the first meeting, 100 showed up. Turned that club into a league for a number of years. Did some fundraising, built a couple outdoor courts, the first of their kind at the time on a school campus. So have some ideas on how to build a program from scratch, a club, league, and facilities. And currently just trying to, grow the sport as much as possible, as we all are. I've written a couple books aimed at U.S. Beginning coaches, have a blog as well that I can put down in the chat if anyone's interested. As far as education, what really helped for me in the beginning was reaching out to local coaches. Joey Almeida of San Francisco was wonderful in the beginning with some basic background. Eventually made it to Barcelona 3 times to learn from FC Barcelona staff, to get some basic ideas on philosophy and curriculum and exercises. So at the end of the day, just continuing to try to grow the sport on all different levels within the club, recreation, competitive, and kind of our elite level as well. And I've had, for a small club, I've had some success. We've won championships for what it's worth in the 3 federations, and look forward to growing the sport.
Thanks, Rob. Vavak, can you tell us a little bit about where your programs come from and what your current roles are in futsal?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I started with futsal in the United States in about 1995, playing, representing the United States with the federation and clubs. And since then, when I stopped playing professionally in the outdoor and in indoor, I started coaching and coaching college, university, and all that. And all the programs in the youth, my teams are trained 3 or 4 times, and one of the sessions was always futsal. And at that time it was just for fun, just for kids to have fun, and I have fun. And I kind of introduced to them what was my background as a soccer player, how I grew up. And then I started in 1999. I got invited to be the assistant coach for the U.S. national team, and I was with the U.S. national team for about 20 years. World Cup, CONCACAF, and then represent also the United States, coaching for the federation, and trying to represent futsal as much as I could around the country. And so I created the World United Futsal Academy, and kind of creating teams to participate in those tournaments by USFF and other organizations, and had my first team, won many titles, national titles, and went on and represent the United States. And then when I created the World United Futsal Academy, I start focus more on the younger players. than the adults. And I thought that was something more, because I'm outdoor coach, and I thought that was better for me, because I think I could give it more to the futsal community on the youth program instead of the adults. And that's about it. Right now, I'm focused on the futsal youth programs, and with the World United having camps with Barcelona. I have a partnership with Barcelona, kind of like Rob Bell, many times in Barcelona with Andreu, and with the staff of Barcelona, and participating in tournaments there and clinics and training there, bringing kids over there to train in Barcelona, and also bringing kids to training in Argentina. So that's about it.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Ricardo, you want to share with us
Yep.
your background and roles?
Okay. Well, thank you again for this talk. It's a good thing for us to be bringing futsal again to the forefront and to help develop our players. So my name is Ricardo Silva. I grew up playing futsal in school in Brazil and came to the US in '97. And my son growing up, he used to play as 3 years old in Brazil. And when we came to the US, we started looking for futsal, and that's how I got involved. So since '99, I started training his teams, and more interest came along. We grew competition. We didn't have a lot of competition back then, so I created a league. So I have Diablo Valley Futsal League since 1999. We run leagues in Concord, San Ramon, and Walnut Creek area. Then after that, I continue training teams and going to tournaments. We are affiliated with the USFF, US Futsal, and it grew to creating a club. So we have a East Bay Diablos Futsal Club. There we created in starting in '99, and then it grew to now we have academy all year round that we train every week and open to all. It's not a soccer club, it's more of a futsal. And so we grew from my son's team to having my son playing and helping, going to the national futsal team camp, both in soccer and futsal. And I also got involved with referees. So I'm a referee instructor for US Futsal. I'm also a coaching staff for national team under US Futsal. So I went to Spain with the U20s. We had several international tournaments here. My kids, I have around 100 and some kids on my academy, and we won several national tournaments. As for instruction, we have training, we have an instruction from US Futsal. I have gone to Brazil with Ferretti, which is a former national coach, is one of the greatest futsal coaches in Brazil, for certification. We have training here in the US too. And well, I'm a futsal advocate. I think it's great for development, and we're now trying to organize more and grow the sport.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for those backgrounds. I do want to say to our audience, if you have questions over the course of this, please put them in the chat. I'll be checking those and sharing questions with our panelists, so we can weave those in. We're going to go kind of Q&A style, interview style for this, but we certainly want your questions as well as we go through. Not everybody here, I think it's, just kind of looking at the attendees, I think we have a mix of people that are attending and their experiences with futsal. Maybe you guys could describe for us a little bit the current community of futsal in Northern California. What does this look like? Where do you feel like good entry points for clubs or club coaches would be to get engaged with the current futsal community that already exists?
Who should go
Hey,
first?
Ricardo.
Okay. So I see the growth, right? A lot of the clubs nowadays are introducing futsal as as a training tool to develop their players. So I see different approaches. So some clubs use futsal as training. Other clubs want to compete and be in several competitions. So the futsal community is in the Bay Area or in Northern California is huge. So we have people involved in futsal in different areas. So I think it depends what the club intent is. If they want to incorporate futsal as a training tool, I think it's perfect. That all should do and incorporate on their training. Getting affiliated if they want to participate in leagues and tournaments. That's we have leagues all over the Northern California. So it we are here to help. I'm representing US Futsal too. Can say that we can provide referee training, we can provide coaching training for those clubs that want to invest in futsal.
Yeah, I think to get a lot of buy-in for if you're looking to create a futsal club within your soccer club, you can create the weekly training. At Ballistic, we have substituted one in the fall, one soccer training for one futsal training, but you really need something, a game component to bring it together in my mind. So our kids would play in San Ramon's league in the wintertime, and that kind of, gave the training some purpose. So again, you can add training as a training tool for the soccer side, but if you want that to really flourish, I believe you need a game component. So I strongly suggest getting involved with a local league. And then if you want to take it to the next level, which is tournaments, I would be neutral. I would not really affiliate too strongly with any federation and remain loyal to that federation. They're all fine, upstanding federations. But at least what we've done at Ballistic has been pretty neutral, and we attend tournaments in all three federations. If that's the next level, so definitely at that point, you're going to want to maybe have a futsal director and acquire some knowledge, because those tournaments are pretty high and advanced. All the clubs at this point are now playing with tactics. But yeah, like Ricardo was saying, there are different entry points. But I think the first thing on the most minimal level would be on a regular basis, putting your teams into local futsal leagues to tie into your training that ideally you'll probably do it sometime in the fall and winter.
As a coaching director of a soccer club and also the coaching director for the USFF, which is the Futsal Federation, one of the things that I actually think that it's important for everyone to know is like one of the things that we did here, like in the club, it was that we, like Ricardo said and Rob, that one of the training for the 77-99, specific for the 77-99, it was a futsal. Why? Because up to 12 years old or 13 years old, that part of the training for them is extremely important. Okay, special futsal. After that, I think is if the kid wants to continue to play futsal and join an academy or join a team, or you have right now we have so many people doing there's academy in South San Francisco, in the peninsula, all over the place. So if the kid wants to continue to do that as after 14, I think I recommend that. I completely agree that there's a one part of the training. You can train, but if you don't have the game, it's not fun for the kids. I think it's important for them to compete, and they will understand the game better if they compete and participate in the game. There's tournaments, there's leagues, and I think it's extremely important that you add that to your program, whatever that is. If it's a soccer program, you add in a futsal program. And the last thing I think it's important for a soccer club to hire someone that understand the game, that can teach the game, and not just put on a website futsal and then have them outdoor coach, which I think it's it's just the fact they can play futsal, it's important for them. But if you have someone that you can hire, they understand the game and have knowledge of the game, I think that would be the most important thing to teach those kids and they get better, developed, for the outdoor.
Let me build off that point because I think all of three of you touched on it a little bit. I know myself as a coach, like I'm still feeling the pain from the first time I took an outdoor team to a futsal tournament. I forget which one it was, but I ended up coaching against Rose City Futsal and got I mean, I think I might have been crying as a coach by halftime of just being, so tactically outcoached in the futsal game with my outdoor group. What advice do you have for coaches or for, club directors around educating their coaches to the specifics and differences? You can't coach a futsal game like you do an outdoor game. And where do you feel like there's some good entry points or some good resources for people?
Okay, so like I was saying, it depends. But for Vava's point, anything you start doing with futsal, you should get someone that knows futsal. Well, you get a clinic, or you can get a training program. If you're going to start a futsal program, get your coaches certified, get them into a program to learn futsal, learn the rules, learn the tactics. They need to have a base and not just go, because as all of us, we've seen, I run leagues in San Ramon, and in San Ramon, they started a program in the beginning where the coaches, outdoor coaches, just come, throw the ball, and play soccer indoor. So it helps to have someone that understands the game and can teach. So depending on how much you want to invest into futsal, if you're really creating a program, hire someone that understands and can train your program. US Futsal has training, has online level 1 training, and has some state licensing for those that are going to be running your futsal program if needed.
So yeah, just to piggyback on that, it all starts with education. That I think there's nothing wrong with rolling the ball out and having a very informal free play experience. I think that's a good entry point. I think that's probably where 90% of where soccer clubs start out, because there's that lack of a basic knowledge of the game. But you're rapidly after that going to want to ramp up. And like Ricardo was saying, and like Bob was saying, you really need to hire someone that knows the game. Because if you're a soccer coach just learning it from scratch and you're suddenly appointed the futsal director, more than likely you're going to be pretty overwhelmed. There are incredible similarities between the games. Futsal essentially is a smaller, faster version of soccer, yet at the same time, it's a completely different sport. And like Nick was saying, many of us have had that experience of starting from scratch. You think you're on to something, you enter a local tournament, and you realize, it's not only another planet, it's another galaxy. So if you can, lessen that learning curve by bringing in someone that knows about the sport, having them run your program and educate your coaches, I think that will save you a lot of time and be worth the investment.
Again, I keep saying it, education. When I became a soccer coach, I did all the license. I tried to, learn as much as I could because I was a soccer player. And then for me to become a coach, I need to educate myself as much as I knew about the game. So to me, it's educating, get yourself. I did a clinic for the earthquakes, for all the academy futsal clinic here in Kerberly. And after the clinic, I did a PowerPoint and all that good stuff. I showed and then I brought the coaches on the floor and I did some exercise and things like that. And then right after that, I had some huge numbers of coaches coming to me asking for help, how to develop the program in their club. Again, educating their coach, certify their coaches, hire someone like Rob Bell, Ricardo. Actually, Rob Bell has got a book. I was very impressed with that, Rob. Very good book. And Ricardo got an academy. He's got a tons of experience. He got a lot of coaches, you know, in his program also that can coach, and myself, obviously. But I think like, you know, anybody can help. Just find someone around your area that can help educating your coaches and educating your kids in futsal.
And to that point, I have contacted the futsal community is really tight. So if you need help, you can reach out to one of us, and we'll find someone close to you that can help. I think even if you're not serious, well, my focus is soccer, and I understand a lot of the clubs, the focus is soccer. Having someone that knows futsal and will teach just for your training, you'll make a huge difference on how your soccer will develop.
So I'm glad Vava's getting 5% of the book sales off of today, Rob. You know, I think you all brought up the same point around, you know, finding somebody that's very familiar with the sport, bring them into your club to help guide things. I'm curious if there aren't, like we have a question here. Are there any common guidelines in terms of methodology and how to incorporate that? So maybe dive in just a touch deeper on, you know, if you are going in and to work with a club and, you know, they put you in front of the coaches, what are maybe a couple of key things you're going to say to those coaches about transitioning, you know, methodology wise from outdoor to futsal, to really be like, what are your main starting points with a group of outdoor coaches?
Do you want to take it, Vava, or?
Sure. Well, I love that topic, by the way, because as an outdoor coach, you know, and being a futsal coach, also someone that I'm very passionate about futsal. Futsal is the most fun thing. And 90%, 99% of my career is coaching outdoor, right? And coach youth. So I had to kind of make a transition. Everything that I did in futsal, I was trying to transition the exercises, the training to futsal, to outdoor, to soccer. And then I found out that Guardiola does a lot of that too, you know, like a lot about the small games and things like that. But again, it's kind of tough because when you do that, you need to really have knowledge how you do things. Like, for example, for many years, I was having a hard time teaching the kids in terms of how they should make the game, speed it up a little bit and seeing the options. So I create this this concept. You know, when a kid has the ball, when I receive the ball, I need always someone making a positive run. Could be a diagonal run, could be just a straightforward run, but a positive run. And then a negative run, a support run, like a negative run, and then a combination. And then one person needs to be the change the point of attack. So when I create that concept, it helped me coach outdoor. So I brought it to the outdoor because that is coming from futsal. When you play futsal, those that understand the futsal a little bit, understand that every time you have the ball, you need a safe net pass. You know, someone in the back, they can make that pass because you cannot use the keeper, right? And then if you want to be extremely offensive, you want to have that offensive player going forward. And then you got to have someone for combination, change the point of attack. So if you look at that, if you think about those things, that concept, it's the same thing for outdoor. So I brought it to outdoor, that concept, and I'm very successful with my kids because it saves me a lot of work by make them understand the concept. And then when I'm training them, it's much easier for them to like possession, you know, all the other stuff that we work with. So but you have to have some knowledge of a futsal, because if you go to futsal and you go like this, I'm going to play 2-2, 1-3-1 and all that, it all comes down to the same, to this concept. If you think about it, whatever you do, whatever system they work, it comes down to that concept. So you take all the system away from the talk and just add the concept, you're going to have that. If you go to outdoor, it's the same thing. I got to stop talking because if I keep talking, I'll take it away.
All right, all good. That's why you're here. Rob, how about you? They put you in front of a group of coaches. What are a couple of key things you want to focus on?
Yeah, you know, I think over the years growing with the sport, the one thing that, you know, initially you get into it, you hear about how wonderful it is for technique. You start delving a little into the tactics, but at the end of the day, I think the gold in futsal is just the rapid decision making and the quality decision making that is needed. So much of the training, like Baba was says, you don't really want to get lost in the formations to start with. More than anything, you just want to turn your kids into problem solvers and great decision makers. And we've all heard that, but essentially futsal puts that on steroids, right? If your kid can make a good decision on how to solve a 2v1 within a tight space, they get back to the soccer field, literally an acre of space and more of room for passing angles and dribbling. So anyways, one of the things that I noticed at the FC Barcelona trainings when I was there, the staff tend to focus on four areas, and they'll sound common to you, but there's futsal versions of these exercises. And one is numbers up. The other over there that is very popular is tag. So you often see PE type tag games. So PE type tag games, usually you associate that with recreation. You see these games in Spain and Barcelona from the youth all the way up to the professionals. So we really try to incorporate a lot of tag games. So numbers up, tag, all sorts of different futsal versions of rondo, and all sorts of specific small-sided games. So all of that is already on the soccer side and curriculums embedded, but there's futsal versions of that. So if you hire a Vava or Ricardo or myself or anyone else in Northern California, you then find a similar curriculum to the soccer side, but obviously tailored to the time and space aspects of futsal.
Just to one point that I'm trying to make, that when you're training youth, one of the things I do it a lot. It comes from futsal and numbers up, just like he said. And so it's 2v1, 3v2, 4v3. So and there's games. The tag games that you're talking about, I call it smart games. So I start a lot of my trainings, basically most of my trainings with my youth programs is I start with the smart games, like fun games to make them think. And there's thousands of games that I love that part, because it changed me completely as an outdoor coach. Because when you go to futsal, most of the futsal coaches are well educated. Okay, they got they have a teacher credentials, most of them, so they have a way of approaching the kids, how they approach the kids, how they teach them the game. It's a little bit more like a teacher, not so much as a coach. Right. And I love that part, because I used to coach the game and I was really frustrated, and then one of my best friends told me, Baba, you got to stop coaching, start teaching it. And I found that on futsal. I started not focus on coaching so much, but teaching the kids. Also, one of the things that make me better outdoor coach was the board, because when I bring someone out off the field and I need to explain something to them, I brought the board and I focus on the board. He pay attention on the board and I pay attention on teaching the point that I'm trying to make. So that helped me just focus on that instead of yelling at them and things like that. So there's a lot of gain from futsal to outdoor.
Yeah, and to that point, it's different because it's a smaller size, the ball runs faster, and the goal is for them to think quicker, speed of play, playing without the ball, and technique. So wherever you go with futsal, technique is the first thing. So the kids will learn, and it will translate perfectly to soccer. So technique, and then fun games that they don't think they are learning anything. And when they go play, it shows how they are learning. So, yep.
Shifting gears, a big question. We've got someone who's asked this as well, and I know something we talked about in preparation for this is facilities. And let's not. I think obviously right now with COVID, facilities is a major nightmare across the board with everything. But let's think beyond COVID, kind of when we get back to normal period and what things were like before this. Any thoughts around or advice around getting access to facilities? Also ideas around playing futsal outdoors, playing futsal on turf, playing futsal, in kind of the various scenarios and solutions of how to find space, and maybe some of the solutions you guys have found.
Okay. So as I said, I started from nothing, just training and trying to find space. So I've trained outdoors in basketball cement courts, which is perfect to training. It's not ideal, but it works fine. So outdoors works. I personally don't like, well, playing turf because it changes the speed of play. Changed a little bit how futsal is played, but when you don't have access to gyms. Having access to gyms, especially on the winter, is really hard. We compete with volleyball, basketball, everything else. But if I can suggest anything, and that's how I started, try to find your kid's school, your parents that have access to some school gym, and try to go that route. City, it's really hard to get into because you're competing with basketball and volleyball. But if you don't have, train outdoor. I would train in grass or turf if I don't have access to other, but it is important. It's difficult. Uh, some clubs are trying to create space right now, like the sheriff now. It's working on a big project for outdoor futsal courts, which we love. I think it's going to be a great addition to the futsal community. But if the main thing is find your parents, try to get everybody engaged to find a school that allows you to train in the gym. Uh, that's my suggestion.
Well, a lot of people think that futsal it's an indoor soccer game. They think that futsal needs to be played on the gym for some reason. But 90% of futsal players in Brazil come from playing outside, not in the gym. In the PE, especially in school, in Brazil, we only have like a small gym. So, but most of the courts are outside. Is for volleyball and futsal. So actually, because of the weather and all that stuff, we play futsal outside, not inside, not indoor. Obviously the games and things like that, if you have a gym, and then leagues, and it's more in the gym. But like they're saying, I I'm training right now on a basketball court. I just made a little bit bigger, put the lines. I train sometimes I have trained in a tennis court. The two tennis court, we took the nets out and made it to a futsal. But I think that's the only thing it's a little bit of a something that I believe that if you're going to train futsal, it should not be in the turf. It should not be in the grass. Why? Slows down the play. Slow down the ball changes completely. It should not use the futsal ball anymore because the ball is a little bit heavier, right? So the kid's going to have hard time carrying it. And one of the things that the trademarks of futsal is the speed of play. The kid play the ball runs really quick. That's why they step on the ball. One of the reasons they step on the ball, and so it changes the game completely. If you want to train futsal, find a court like a tennis court or a basketball court or a gym. But for me, it's like this. All the clubs they have right here where we live. You can put a request to the city on the gyms. And then you're obviously going to fight with your basketball organizations and your volleyball. But if you get there earlier, you're gonna find some times they have to get some time on the gyms. I'll highly recommend that you go to the county or the city and request some gym time for your club or for your organization. Okay, obviously the clubs, for being a nonprofit organization, they have priorities on that, and that's how you get in the gyms. That's the only way I can think that that's how I get the gyms here.
So same story here. Basically, in the wintertime, as mentioned, the gyms are highly impacted with basketball and volleyball and what have you. What we've done at Ballistic for 8 years, we've been outdoors on a local middle school. Asphalt, nothing to put on a postcard. It's not very pretty, but it's very effective. A flat surface is a flat surface. The downside of a blacktop or asphalt, you are going to have some scraped knees. If you can find your way to poured concrete, such as in Pleasanton, there's a roller hockey rink. It's poured concrete, so when the kids slip, they don't tear up their knees quite as much. But a hard surface like concrete or asphalt is 1,000 times better than turf. Turf is manageable, but depending on the thickness of the turf, many times the kids are switching over to cleats instead of futsal shoes, so it takes away some of the subtleties of the game. If you want to go next level with your school district or local school, you might talk about a joint project where they give you the land or the blacktop area. You build a tennis court, a surface, you put some chain link fence around it. That's what we did at a middle school in Livermore. It was a high quality court that had a rubber component. So we had a recycling grant, got about $30,000 for the recycling component. So the courts were built, put some chain link fences around it. 10 years later, still no maintenance on that. Court's as good as it was 10 years ago. So that's a nice upgrade. And it's a win-win for the school, right? Those kids get to use that during PE and recess, and then you take over maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think the most effective way is probably partnering with your local school and school district.
Terrific. Want to ask your thoughts on where it's going. So, futsal obviously is, seen a lot of growth in the US, both at youth and adult levels. Where do you see the sport headed? Maybe both here in Northern California and in the US in general, both on kind of youth and adult levels.
I can say where I wish it would head it to Olympics. That's what I wish for. It's becoming an Olympic sport. I don't think it will. There's a lot of politics involved, and that it's out of our hands. But in the U.S., it's growing a lot. So my hope is that we can get into college to be a college sport, and that will boost even more clubs and the leagues to adopt futsal. It is growing, the fact that we have different leagues or on the higher level trying to build up on futsal. We need to have a professional league, which we have some attempts. I was involved. I had a men's team in 2016 and 17 in APFL, which lasts for 2 years. There is another one in the East Coast, but nothing solid. I think we don't have the public yet, but that's another growth that I think we need to go towards. It's having a professional league will bring everything up. It's growing. I think the adoption is amazing. So.
Baba,
It is growing tremendously. We wouldn't have been having this conversation 5, even 10 years ago when I started a program in 2010. Tremendous amount of skepticism. It was just a quaint little winter sport that the kids would do when soccer went away in the wintertime. When I started a program in 2013 at Ballistic, there was open resistance from a number of coaches who would flat out say, hey, I don't believe this is worth the kids' effort, in different variations of that, and sometimes not so politely. But I think we're at a tipping point, right? And we're having meetings like this, and I fully expect the futsal will take the same route as in Spain and Brazil, and the participation numbers will likely be bigger than soccer in the next 20 to 25 years. It's that much, it's that fun. It is not a whole different sport. It is a smaller version of soccer. So I really see that a lot of the soccer, the way that I think futsal is where probably soccer was 40 years ago. And I think we're going to see rapid growth. I think for the most part, there'll be different models, but I think every soccer club will have some futsal component. I see a Norcal type league developing within the next 5 years for futsal. And I believe within our programs, futsal will be used as a developmental tool, but at some point it's going to get so popular and the numbers will be there. We'll all have facilities in one way or another. And I believe it will be a separate path, much like in Brazil, kids get to a U11, U12, and they often decide, do I continue with soccer? Do I continue with futsal? And I think it'll benefit all our clubs to have that futsal path to maintain membership. Again, it's not like they're playing lacrosse. It's just a smaller version of soccer. But I think eventually all of our clubs will have a futsal path and futsal leagues, and it'll very much take on the structure of the current youth soccer, the way it's organized in Northern California.
Um, about 10 years ago, we were at CONCACAF, and they called us for a meeting. And one of the questions they asked us is, what do you do in your country to develop the futsal? And they asked specific us, the coaches from the US, that what has been done to, and what need to be done to grow the futsal in our country. Obviously, a professional league is important, right? For the kids to have their idols, have their teams and things like that. But I think coming from Brazil, I think one of the most important things will be to get to the schools, middle school, high school. High schools, they love to have another sport, and it's cheap. And I think when we get to the middle schools and high schools, and then he probably can get to college, but first he's got to get to high school first. I think when you get there, and then I think we got a big step. And also, right now, everybody knows, every club needs a futsal program. If you don't have a futsal program, you got a problem, right? But the problem is, which is a good thing, but at the same time, they just have the futsal. Just if you go click in every website, you click over there, there's a futsal program. The most important thing is that I don't see someone actually running the futsal program, someone that has, like we talked about. But I think it's going pretty fast. It's actually extremely fast, because a bunch of my friends in the East Coast, and because the winter there is pretty cold, they play futsal 3 to 4 months of the year, like flat out full-time futsal, right? Because they don't have the weather that we have here. So I was actually surprised, because I was asked to do a clinic over there, and I was extremely shocked how many kids showed up for the clinic. And here we struggle a little bit to get people to to show up for our clinics. Ricardo and Rob can vouch for that, but you have to have like a partnership with Barcelona. You got whatever. You got to make it such a to get people to understand it's important. But the thing that I love about futsal, because the kid, after he played futsal, he loves it. It's fun for them. It's extremely fun for them. That's it, right? If you take all the other stuff away from them, like you're going to be an unbelievable soccer player, you don't know if you're going to be an unbelievable soccer player. Just because you play futsal doesn't mean anything. Like a lot of people has a perception that futsal is a dribbling game. No, futsal is actually a passing game, right? You become very technical. Every player becomes very technical because you work in a tight space. You have to make quick decisions, and the game is very fast, so it becomes very technical. But the game is actually a passing game. It's not a dribbling game. So that carries on to the outdoor again. But I think what we need to do to develop the game is get the game into the schools. I think that'll be a big step. Obviously, the Olympics, I'm disagreeing again with Ricardo, but it's a good disagreement. I think eventually we're going to get to the Olympics, because it's about money. It's about money. So, but eventually I think we're going to get to the Olympics. And that's the big thing. Futsal should be an Olympic sport.
Let's hope so. It's a great dream. We do have a number of questions are coming through. So what I'd like to do now with our last little bit of time is I'm just going to kind of fire some questions just directly to an individual person rather than have everybody speak to them. Ricardo, I'm going to start with you. Sometimes we run into concerns about soccer clubs sharing their players with futsal clubs, and that kind of dynamic of things. Can you speak to that a little bit, and just your thoughts on those dynamics that because I know you've run into that quite a bit over the years.
Yeah.
So seen it a bit.
Yeah. So, like Rob mentioned in the beginning, what's futsal? Nobody knew, and we got a lot of pushback because of futsal. Now everybody at least knows about futsal. On my case, and I think Vavaz World United also, all my players come from soccer clubs. So we have an elite academy that comes from different soccer clubs. So those are elite soccer players that want more and want to develop. And sometimes the clubs don't like it, or they push back saying, oh no, you can only play with us, or can only play with us. So we face that, which I think it's completely wrong. We are getting elite players training together to be better. So we are better the clubs. On my case specifically, I don't have anything to do with soccer. My only field is futsal. So the players come play with me on my official competitions with the US futsal, and they go back to their clubs. My futsal doesn't impact their training or conflict with anything. So we do face those, but as clubs develop more and they're starting to understand. So I have players from all over the place. Some players come far away to my academy. So I know Vava suffers the same thing. It's hard to sometimes to get players from, but we are trying to help to develop your players. We're not competing with you.
Okay, thank you. We do have a request, and you can put it in the chat if you like, for your contact info as a panelist, if people are
Sure.
interested in following up with you individually. So maybe you could just, put whatever you want to use in the chat function. While we're doing that, in the next question, Vava, would you mind switching me to the host? It's under panelists, and just you'd click on my name. Next question, Rob, I'm gonna kick this one to you. Kind of the structure of running futsal training. I think a lot of us, we budget our programs for a certain approach to players. What is your advice on kind of how many players is appropriate for a training session with a futsal coach, and should people be just taking kind of a full outdoor roster size and putting that into a futsal setting? And what have you done on that front to kind of help people in structure side?
Yeah, no, I think in general, a lot depends on the experience of the coach. So after a decade of coaching, I'm comfortable with groups up to 30 on my own, and maybe 2 or 3 courts. But in my first couple of years, I really wanted to keep it to 10 to 12 kids. So if you're a beginning coach, if you've got a roster of at the older ages, 11v11 of 16 to 18, you might need an assistant. But I would really recommend that target. Ideally, you're looking at 10 to 12 kiddos, 1 court, and that kind of works well with all the exercises. And then the kids have plenty of time when it comes to scrimmaging. When you get a little more experience, at least for me, the ideal number is now 15 to 18. And for me, what that allows, the way I like to run my training, is half of it is always scrimmage. That's the most fun part. Obviously, a ton of learning as they solve unique problems. But I love that number of 15, because if I can get to 15, the endurance aspect of futsal is very different than soccer. In soccer, you want that endurance where a kiddo potentially at 11v11 can be out there for 75 minutes, 90 minutes. Not the case in futsal. In futsal, it very much is like hockey or basketball, where you're out there for 3, 4, 5 minutes, you're giving it your all, and then you're quickly substituted. So for that reason, when I like 15, because I have 3 teams during scrimmage, we play winner stays on, and you constantly have a group every 2 minutes running on and off. So again, for me, 15 really works well when you get to scrimmaging, because then I can replicate that every kid is giving it his all, being substituted out every 2 to 4 minutes. And then that really replicates kind of the game pattern or the game endurance necessary. If you have kids that are out there just scrimmaging 5v5 and they're doing that for 45 minutes, after about 10 to 15 minutes, the performance will really taper off, because it's just like playing basketball for 45 minutes. It's just not that type of, not conducive to that type of endurance and training.
Wonderful. Vava, question for you. I know futsal's kind of got its little bit of alphabet soup of governing bodies and different leagues and things like that, but can you maybe point people towards some leagues and tournaments here in Northern California that are maybe some good opportunities for, if you want to start sending your teams and, bringing your club to these things? Where should people look?
Yeah, like we said in the beginning, politics apart, it doesn't matter. We just want our kids to play futsal. We want more futsal coaches, want more futsal players. I would highly recommend that you go to your local first, trying to find something local. But if you go to our federation, local federation here, it's a USFF, and they have the regionals, nationals. But then also you have your local leagues. Like, for example, I have my own league here, the Stanford Palo Alto Futsal League, which is, I try to stay local, like clubs from MVLA, Palo Alto, Alpine, Force. I mean, we get all those clubs around us. again, I think people like in the East Coast, in the East Bay, you have other leagues over there. In South San Francisco, you have other leagues. San Jose has another league. So I think find a league that you don't have to travel that much, you know. And people like, oh, I want to travel to another league because over there it's more competitive. Yeah, but if you leave, it don't help the other league grow to be competitive, right? So I think everybody needs to stay local a little bit, okay, and find yourself, create and build up that league to be more competitive or whatever. You know, like for example, I'm very open with my league. Like, what in the end of every season, asking the coaches, what do you think we should do to make our league better? And when it comes to the, you know, our organization, you know, we got here the local one, USFF, and then there's other organizations that, you know, they're doing the same thing where they're basically trying to promote the game, which is a good thing. So whatever is convenient for you, whatever it's, you know, it's, if you want to travel a little bit more and have your kids, you know, playing another organization, please do. You know, I think whatever is good for you. If you wanna go to Arizona, if you want to go the other side of the East Coast, there's other leagues over there. You know, it's fine. But don't focus so much on the organization. Focus more what do you want from your kids. That's my opinion.
Wonderful. We got one question directed to Norcal of when do you think Norcal will have its own futsal league? I'll say it's actually something some of our staff have talked about, and you know, we kind of look at time to time. Personally, I think it'd be great and very interesting to see what that would look like. I think we also, one of our areas of discussion is also really being sensitive to the people that are already, and you know, being respectful of those that have led it. To that point, in kind of closing today, I want to say thank you to all three of you, and I would say on behalf of, you know, our soccer community, one of the things in setting up this webinar that we talked about not getting into too much was the player development benefits of futsal, and I think 5 or 10 years ago, that would have needed to have been part of the topic. But I think because of the work that the three of you and others have done in really taking the game forward in Northern California, I think, you know, that benefit is become very obvious to us as coaches and directors. You know, you've done a lot to carry the sport forward. You've done a lot that have benefited, you know, players that are outside your own programs, and a lot of us that are here have players that have benefited from playing under you and your work. You know, thank you for that work you've done, and you know, helping to grow the sport. I think as what is good as futsal is good for outdoor, and you know, there's equal benefits. You know, we certainly, you know, wish you guys the best of luck going forward and best of fortunes. And you know, thank you for spending this time today with all of us and sharing your experiences. They have put their contact info in the chat, so if you're interested in following up with any of them with additional questions, please feel free. And then I'll just finish with a plug for upcoming webinars. We have 2 more on the next 2 Wednesdays, and then we're in the process of setting up more, carrying forward, trying to keep Wednesdays as a regular day. We also have coach education webinars on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It does sound like tomorrow's, because of the weather issues in Texas, Mikey Varas has to reschedule, but we have some other ones that are coming up. So certainly encourage you and the coaches in your clubs, please share the links and let people know. And finally, again, we do for all three of you, and really appreciate that. So.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes.